Everybody, welcome to our Orange and Brown Talk live post-game show here. Dan Labbe, Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock. We are all at Huntington Bank Field. The Browns 31-6 winners over the Miami Dolphins, our first victory post-game podcast in a while. So if you're watching on our YouTube channel here, great to have you on. If you are listening after the fact and you're like, man, I wish I could have been a part of that, you just got to get subscribed to our YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. Or if you're watching on YouTube and you're like, hey, where's this podcast? Just go hit us up on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Look for Orange and Brown Talk, wherever you listen to your pods, and get subscribed. Okay, let's get to it. Browns 31-6 winners in this football game. A lot of reasons why, Mary Kay. So let's just start here. When you think back on this game and why the Cleveland Browns won their second game of the season, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, mostly just a dominant defensive performance with 3 interceptions and then also the forced fumble. So the 4 takeaways by this football team and winning the turnover battle 4-0. I mean, that's it right there. They scored 21 points off of those turnovers. And Quinshon Judkins also stands out. It was really cool what they did with him. They got back to really running with him in these horrible conditions. 25 carries, 84 yards, 3 touchdowns by him. But once again, it really comes down to those amazing takeaways by the defense and some really, really nice defensive performances, particularly by Grant Delpit, Tyson Campbell, Sean Jenkins.
Yeah, this was a dominant defensive performance. And we've kind of talked about this in relation to the Browns at times. Like, with as bad as their offense has been, there have been times when it's like a truly dominant defense just shuts them down and makes them unable to function. And Ashley, it's like the Browns turned to the tables today on a Dolphins team that I don't know what's happened to this team in the last however long. Like, this used to be a team that could put up points, that could run an efficient offense, all of those things. Today, the Browns defense, to their credit, and also, part of it is on the Dolphins, but to the Browns defense's credit, they made that Dolphins offense look completely inept in these conditions, and just with everything they were doing out there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was thinking about, it wasn't even like 10 months ago that the Dolphins came into Huntington Bank Field when the Browns were struggling and just embarrassed the Browns here. Snoop Huntley started for them, right? That happened last year. I also think about that 2022 game. We've referenced it a lot. It was after their bye week. The Browns were riding high because they had beaten the Bengals in prime time on Halloween night. And they came out 2 weeks later and just got destroyed, dismantled by the Dolphins in Miami. So it was definitely different to see this Miami Dolphins team like this and this offense as stagnant as it was. But I thought it was so interesting that the Browns saw some things that they thought Sean Jenkins could have a huge role in this game, that he was going to be a matchup problem. And he was directly involved in 3 of those takeaways, right? I mean, he recovers the fumble on the kick return. He gets the second interception, and he's the one that hit Achane that caused him to bobble the ball and get it into the hands of Tyson Campbell. So I definitely thought like a really strong game from him with how aggressive he is to rattle that Miami offense that was already struggling.
Yeah, and look, he gave a speech on Saturday night. I guess we found out about that after the game about, hey, like, what if everyone just plays, essentially what he said was, what if everyone just plays a perfect game on Sunday? Like, what happens then? And, the way he described it was every single play either get a win or a loss. So what if you just win all those plays and everybody does their jobs? And Mary Kay, look, I don't think there is such a thing as perfection on a football field. That's always what you strive for, but it's hard to actually reach it. This was, I would imagine, and Jim Schwartz would never admit this to us, but this was, I would imagine, as close to perfect as this defense could play in a football game.
Yeah, I mean, they all pulled together. Myles Garrett talked after the game about how Jim Schwartz got way more aggressive and returned to the Jim I know. That was a pretty strong statement for tough talking Myles after the game. But yeah, that was pretty incredible for him to observe that. And we saw that Myles moved around more. So they did some different things against this Miami offense. And I think it's important to note that the Miami offense had scored 27 points in 3 of its last 5 games. So this wasn't the point-starved offense necessarily that the Cleveland Browns are, only averaging heading into this game 13.7 points a game. The Miami Dolphins were scoring 22.3 points per game, which was 18th in the league, sort of, middle of the road. But at least it was a heck of a lot more than the Browns were scoring, and more so, again, over the last 5 weeks or so. So it was a pretty incredible defensive performance. And I thought that also this was a week in which Myles Garrett was very vocal. He came out, he called out the offense. He lamented the lack of scoring on offense. He basically criticized the Browns for not running Quinshawn Moore in that Pittsburgh Steelers loss. I think he got a little talking to by Kevin, because Kevin kind of admitted that he wasn't going to share what he talks to players about. So lo and behold, he must have talked to Myles Garrett about what he said. But I thought, some of that fire that they all showed and some of the things that happened this week within the walls of that Browns facility, I think got those guys fired up and helped lead to this victory.
Yeah, and I do think the aggression thing is interesting, because we did see some things we don't always see. I mean, Grant Delpit was blitzing today. At one point, Denzel Ward blitzed. I mean, there were guys coming after the quarterback that we haven't always seen Jim Schwartz do. So I thought that was interesting. And just really, look, Ashley, I love a good vibes check. Like, Mary Kay does not let us say must win until it's actually definitively a you either win or your season's over type of game. That was not this. But the way I kind of described this game was like, this was not a must win, but this was a have to win. Like, if you lose this game, I don't know what we're talking about on this podcast, but it's not pretty. It's not fun. Nobody's happy. You had to win this football game in these conditions at your home stadium against a Dolphins team that, I mean, to your point, Mary Kay, obviously they were scoring more than the Browns, where their offense was in better shape, but everything else around this Dolphins team was an absolute mess.
Yeah, like I think I even said to you in the pregame, Dan, if this team loses, I have no idea what we're about to go in that last locker room and have to ask. Like, truly, last week in Pittsburgh was just so brutal, and one of those Pittsburgh losses where it's like, where do you even go from here? And I do think today would have been worse, just because we talked about it all week. I think Miami is in a much worse situation than this Cleveland Browns football team was in heading into this week. And just, I mean, the Browns have their questions, but Mike McDaniel's seat is truly, I think, hot in a way that, when people talk about, oh, would the Browns fire Kevin Stefanski? That's like outside chatter and talk radio fodder. It's nothing substantial. Like, the Dolphins stuff with him feels certainly more substantial and has for most of the year. Players only meetings, big topic of conversation for them as well, right? And look, Myles said what he said on Friday, but the Tua stuff this week, like, that was a big news story. It was kind of a distraction when he called out teammates for, bad attendance in those meetings and then apologized. Like, just not a week you want to have as a starting quarterback. So I definitely think it would have been disastrous to lose this game. And I don't know where they would have gone from here, because at that point it's like, truly, what are you doing? And my gosh, we're not even halfway through the season yet. So for their sakes, like, I think a win like this, I wrote this in like my zero column, like, does it mean anything in the grand scheme of the season? Like, not really, other than for me, it just kind of shows this recipe that we've always assumed was going to be the recipe with this team. You have to rely on your run game. You have to, like, any win you get is going to come on the backs of your defense. And you have to play clean football. And they did those things. And thankfully for them, it led to a win.
Yeah, I do want to kind of frame this in the big picture here before I let you guys go. But first, I think we do need to talk about the other part of this when you think about how this team won this football game, and that's Quinshawn Judkins. Look, his final stats, nobody's going to look at this box score if they didn't watch the game. Nobody's going to look at this box score and be like completely blown away. Obviously, they'll see the 3 touchdowns, but he finishes 25 carries, 84 yards. That's a 3.4 yard average. I don't care what that box score says, Mary Kay, because I was here watching the game. You were here watching the game. Ashley was watching the game. We were here with, 45,000 of our closest friends watching this football game. Anybody who saw Quinshawn Judkins run the ball today know that this was a dominant performance by him and by this Browns running game as a whole.
Well, it definitely was, and that is what you would expect against the worst run defense in the NFL. Number 32 in the NFL, giving up 168.5 yards per game. So this is a game when you need Quinshon Judkins to cook if you're expecting him to be your Nick Chubb. And they did have tackle problems again today. Jack Conklin was not able to play in this game because of a concussion. Cornelius Lucas, who had been inactive for the previous 2 games, pressed into the starting role there. And then KT Levinston also spending some time there at right tackle, and Cam Robinson, a new left tackle. So things are not all rosy on the offensive line right now. But still, they managed to get those 84 yards and 3 touchdowns out of Quinshon. They ran him in the Wildcat for 3 snaps, and he got 2 rushing touchdowns out of the Wildcat. So they did some things differently. And Joel Bitonio revealed that Kevin Stefanski kind of gave an impassioned speech on Monday to set the tone and to really kind of call this offense up out of its doldrums and talk about just how important it was for the offense to wake up and do some things. And I thought it showed a lot of fight and a lot of heart and a lot of spirit. Dylan Gabriel certainly did. Quinshon certainly did. But it must be remembered that the offense did not score most of those points. 21 points. I mean, the offense scored some of those points, but because of the takeaways. 21 of the 31 points came off of takeaways. And it's vitally important to get those. And sometimes they come in bunches. And hopefully for the Browns, now they've turned the corner on those and they'll just keep getting them. But the offense is still very much a work in progress, very much full of rookies, and still has a long way to go.
Yeah, I do still think that today was at times a case of Miami was sitting on that run game a little bit. And it was, I think that's why the final numbers, the 84 yards, the yards per carry were down. I think Miami was still kind of sitting on that. And, Mike Vrabel and that Patriots defense, that's what they're going to do. Like all these teams they're going to play, it's going to start with stopping Quinshon Judkins. And until this team can consistently pass the football, I mean, Dylan Gabriel didn't get to 100 yards passing until that throw to Harold Fannin in the fourth quarter. Some of that could have been the conditions. I don't know. But obviously they still need to get that going. This was not oh my God, the offense is fixed moment. But at the very least, Ashley, we knew coming into this game, they're going to be able to run the football. This could be a big Quinshon game. And that's what it was. And that's a good thing. The Browns did what they were supposed to do today.
Well, I think it was also a good thing just because those first 2 drives in the first quarter, it wasn't quite working, right? Like Quinshon had some negative yardage plays. I forget, I don't have the first quarter stats in front of me, but the numbers weren't great. You're looking at it and you're like, this is the worst ranked run defense. You got to find a way to get some more production than you are. And they still stuck with it. And I think that's important. And Mary Kay, I think, wrote this in one of her stories about, in Pittsburgh, they weren't trailing by a lot and they got away from the run fairly quickly. Even though it was 9-0 for most of that first half, they got away from it. And I thought it was important that they stuck with it because you see in some of those plays that 46-yard run, I'm thinking about Wyatt Teller opens the hole. It's one move for Quinshon Judkins and he was gone. He broke a tackle. He made another guy miss. It was just a really nice run. That 3-yard touchdown, he kind of does that little spin move. And it just were nice, productive plays from him. And again, really promising that this is a rookie. But I mean, bigger picture here, it is just going to keep making it easier on teams the longer this Browns passing offense refuses to get going. And the conditions were what they were today. There wasn't much they could do, I don't think. But they're going to have to find a way. And obviously, I'm already thinking about next week and how Mike Vrabel is not going to make it easy on this team, obviously, especially after being here all last year.
Yeah, that should be, we'll see. Mike Vrabel is one of those coaches that next week is interesting. We don't need to get too far into next week, but Mike Vrabel is one of those coaches, right, on the defensive side. He's going to know your weaknesses and he's going to get after you. And then on the offensive side, Josh McDaniels is one of those OCs. We've talked about this. Like, if he's feeling good about his quarterback, and I think he is, he can kind of find some ways to poke holes in your defense and find some weaknesses. So this is going to be a very interesting game in New England next week. But I do want to try and frame this game a little bit. So Mary Kate, in my post game column, I always try to think like bigger picture, like what does this mean? The Browns won this game or they lost this game. What does it mean? And today I just kind of thought, I don't know if it means anything, but they just needed a win. And they got to win. But that being said, they got New England next week on the road. They have the bye week. And then 3 of their next 5, they've got, not to get too much into the schedule game here, but they've got the Jets, they've got the Raiders, and they've got, who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody here on the schedule. Ravens. I wasn't counting the Ravens in that because I don't know what, like if the Ravens are back and healthy, I think that's different. But I'm looking at it right now. Tennessee, that's who I'm forgetting. So they play the Jets, the Ravens, the Raiders, the Niners, and the Titans. So that's 3 of those 5 you look at kind of like you do the Dolphins, and you say, but the Browns should have a chance to win those games, or maybe they'll be favored in all 3 of those games. I don't know. And that's not like a path to a wild card, but you're sure talking about this team really differently if they have 4 or 5 wins going into December or by the middle of December, and they've got a little momentum, and maybe this offense is moving the right direction. I'm getting way ahead of myself because I feel like we've done this before, and then they go and lay an egg against a team like the Jets or something. But this win kind of at least allows you to think like, okay, this team is not in the same class as the Dolphins. They're at least in a tier above the teams that are at the very bottom of the NFL, in large part because this defense is really good.
Exactly. That has everything to do with it. We know that the offense is, once again, a rookie-centric work in progress. But this defense is so darn good that it has kept this team and will probably keep this team somewhat relevant over the next how many ever weeks or so. And what I think about when I look at this is, you can't shoulda, woulda, coulda. But if you look back, there are 2 football games that they completely blew and easily could have won. I'm thinking, of course, of the Bengals game and, of course, of the Vikings game in London, where they just blew it and couldn't get the stop and had the lead in the 4th quarter until that last drive. I mean, they right now could have 4 victories very easily. And I know you are what your record says you are. I do get that. But I do think there is a difference between a team that has no chance to win football games whatsoever and a team that right now could be 4-6 with 3 very winnable games coming up. And then you would have started to be talking about, maybe, just maybe, they can make a run for it at the end a little bit with the way things are going in the AFC North. So, I don't know. I do think it's meaningful from that standpoint. I think it shows that this defense is for real. And, too bad for the Cleveland Browns and their fans this year that they didn't have some offense to go along with it. And maybe the offense will come around.
Yeah, and look, again, a lot of that goes to what we were talking about. They got to get this passing game figured out. They got to get Dylan Gabriel going. I mean, today there were some plays early in that game that were those almost interceptions, right? Almost had 4 of them last week against the Steelers. I don't know what the final. I know PFF does a good job with this, with those turnover-worthy plays. I don't know what it's going to be for Dylan on Monday, but it's probably going to be like 2 or 3 that should have been picked off. Like, the Shador people are starting to get into our chat here. Trust me, we aren't looking at this Dylan Gabriel game and saying he was awesome today. They won because of the defense. They won because of the run game. And yes, we're going to acknowledge that it was rainy and windy. That's part of the story. That's not making an excuse, but we'll see. That said, Ashley, look, if the Browns can figure this out and go to New England next week and maybe win their 3rd game of the season, even my cold, dead heart might be willing to entertain something happening for this team in the second half of this season. I think this win kind of makes next week's game against New England, I don't want to say important, but it means more than it would have if they would have lost.
Yeah, I think New England is another one of those weird teams in terms of my time on the beat. Like, I've seen the Browns lose 2 games to the Patriots, and each of my first 2 seasons, that 2021 game, on the road where they had just beaten the Bengals on the road. Everyone thought they had turned a corner. The Odell Beckham Jr. drama was behind them, and the Patriots just ran over them. Myles Garrett was criticizing his D coordinator after. And then the following year, it was the game where Bailey Zappi came in and threw for like 300 yards here, and they won. So that is another, obviously it's different now because Mike Vrabel is the coach. I think that's why it makes me more cautious in terms of how I'm going to pick that game. Since it's sitting here on Sunday night, I still don't know. And seeing they beat Tennessee today, his former team, on the road there. So that is a interesting and tough matchup. This is a guy, a head coach in Vrabel who knows this team. I mean, today when Grant Delpit was talking after the game, he even said next week we have to go. He didn't say like go out and play the Patriots. He said go out and beat Vrabel was something to the effect of the quote. He was name dropping Mike Vrabel already. So that's going to be a tough ask, I think, to turn around and have to do that. I think now it's all about, they have to remember that they still only have 2 wins, right? You can't get too happy and too confident after this one. I think it's going to be a good exercise in truly wiping the slate clean after you watch that film tomorrow and get ready for a New England team that I think has surprised a lot of people so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Vrabel, this is such a unique situation. Mike Vrabel was in this building last year, and he knows the inner workings of how Kevin does things. And obviously, there's been some turnover, right? There's been some things that have changed. The quarterback's different, system is different, offensive coordinator is different. There's been a lot of change, but also Mike knows all the little inner workings and how Kevin's brain works and all of that stuff. So we'll see. It should be interesting. Okay. Anything before I let you go? Anything you want to add, Mary Kay, Ashley, or are you guys good? Or we're going to hand it over to Lance here for a couple minutes on our post game. Okay.
I'm good.
All right. I'm going to let you guys go then. And then we're going to bring in Lance Reisland to finish out our post-game here for about 10, 15 minutes. So again, this is always the adventure. Can I actually pull this off? Getting Lance in. I'm waiting for him to log on. So let me just text him and make sure that he's all set in real time. We're doing this. Okay. This is good podcasting right here. Sorry, I'm sending a text. After this, I'll get into the comments a little bit while we're waiting. So telling him to hop on right now. So if you're listening to this after the fact, just remember we do go live usually around 8:15 on our YouTube channel, which is Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. If you're one of our people watching it live, if you're catching us on YouTube after the fact as well, and you're not subscribed to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please jump over, get subscribed, leave us 5-star reviews, and let us know what you think. Let's see. I'm trying to get some comments up here on the chat, and it keeps running away from me. So here we go. They're not beating the Patriots. 5 needs to throw the ball down the field more and stop with the short passing. I always forget this, by the way. He's actually wearing 8 now, and every now and again I'm like, wait a second, who's number 8? Of course, it's the quarterback, Dillon Gabriel. But yes, I mean, look, the passing game is not aggressive. The passing game has not been good enough. It just has not been good enough, and they're not getting enough shots downfield. He is missing throws. Again, there have been those turnover-worthy plays. I'm not going to sit here and defend all of that. It is what it is. They're going to. Dillon Gabriel was the guy they picked in the 3rd round, and he's the guy that they're going to wait to find out about. Like, he's going to get time, and they're not going to have a quick hook for him. That's not me making that decision. That's the Cleveland Browns, who once again picked him in the 3rd round. So they're going to give him some leash, and they're going to let him kind of ride this out. They're going to let him figure out if he can get this passing game going. He's going to be the starter, go through the weeks of preparation, go through the weeks of, watching the film, figuring out what he could do better. Can he actually do it better? I don't know. It's not off to a great start, but that's what it is. That's what the Cleveland Browns are going to do. I do think we're going to see Shedeur Sanders at some point. I still believe that. He's the backup. He's a play away. If nothing else, Dillon Gabriel will probably have to miss a game here or there, and he'll probably end up getting some playing time. So I know it's hard to be patient, and I've said this before on this pod, by the way. I think Shedeur Sanders has a higher ceiling than Dillon Gabriel. That doesn't mean he's going to reach that ceiling. That doesn't mean I necessarily even believe he's going to reach that ceiling, but we are going to need to see at some point, has he improved at some of the things that I think would hold him back, which are things like dealing with pressure, taking bad sacks. I don't know if he's going to turn the ball over a lot once he gets out there. I don't know. But those are things we have to find out about him. I don't know when we're going to get a chance to find out about it. It's not going to be anytime soon, I don't think, unless Dylan Gabriel gets hurt. Lance Reisland, can you hear me?
I got you. You got me?
Oh, I got you too. Look at this. I'm getting smarter and smarter by the week, where this is like seamless.
I know you're right you're rubbing off on me. I feel smarter when this comes on here.
All right. Let's get to this.
First and foremost, nice. I've been working with you. It's really nice talking to you after a win tonight. I feel
first
pretty.
Time. Yeah, I actually said that to Joel Bitonio. Joel Bitonio is one of the best guys in that locker room. Talks every time we ask him to. We have this award called the Good Guy, and he wins it all the time because he always talks. He's always available, and after every loss, inevitably we end up at Joel Bitonio's locker room. And today, after he talked, I said, "Man, it was good to talk to you after a win."
Absolutely.
I always feel bad. Sometimes we don't make it over to him after a win. I feel bad. But anyway, let's get to this football game. What do you want to talk about first, the defense or the run game?
I want to talk about the run game.
All right, let's get into the run game. I wrote about Quinshon Judkins, and I watched that long run. And man, that lane that they opened up for him to run through on that 46-yard touchdown run, that was a thing of beauty.
Well, the thing I was really excited about, Dan, is if you remember, you and I were talking about this week about how the Browns were just running duo, right? They were only running the vertical stuff, and they weren't pulling those guards. All 3 touchdowns were a form of counter, right? The power and 2 variations of counter tray was very exciting to see. So it's good to see them kind of get back to what they have had a ton of success with. Now, they've had success running the ball, and I still think duo on those things can be successful, but that counter game, those gap schemes are easy to teach. You can get the hair on fire and get them downhill. It was great to see all those gap schemes brought back today. Seeing Bitonio pulling and Teller blocking down is when I think they're at their best.
Yeah, and that was the thing that stood out to me too, because when I didn't notice it in real time, but when I went and watched it, right? Of course, you have Teller and you have KT Leviston kind of blocking to the left. You have Blake Whitehart kind of clearing out to the right. And then Fannin lined up at fullback. Bitonio pulls over, and they just wipe out the Dolphins defender. And then Quinshon gets to the second level. And again, just a thing of beauty in that one run. But like you said, it was more than just that one run. Those Wildcat runs, all of the run game was just working today, even though the final stats don't necessarily show how good it was. It was just working.
Well, and here's the thing. It's so easy in the game of football to criticize all the time. And I know I do the same. I'm not any better. But you got to give them, they struggled, but they went back to work, and there was a lot of diversity in that run game today. So not only was it the guards pulling, but it was Whitehart. It was variations of their counter game out of different formations with different guys with different responsibilities. That's what Kevin's been really good at in his time as offense coordinator, is the ability to create those mismatches, not only the pass game but the run game. I love the counter game. I thought again, when you get Teller coming downhill on a guy inside of him, he moves people, and he constantly moves people. And then you take a guy like KT Levinston, who is a guy who's struggling in pass protection, but he's not a guy who overly struggles in man blocking. He will get after you in the run game. He's just not good in pass protection yet. So I think they played to some strengths today. They're minimizing some weaknesses today. And I don't care who they played, and I've gotten a million messages, one thing I always say is you have to enjoy the wins. If I look back at my coaching career, you have to enjoy these wins, because then it makes work the next week better. So enjoy the win. It was well earned. They were struggling. Really good job with the run game and sticking to the plan.
I want to get to a couple comments here. Somebody had a Dylan Gabriel comment I want to get to, but I kind of along those lines, I want to put this up on our screen here. So this comes from Cole Dixon. Today showed how bad the Finns are, I think, more than how good the Browns are. Yes and no. I think, look, the Dolphins are awful. And if the Browns play this way against certain teams, if the Browns offensively especially, I don't think it's going to be this easy against the Patriots next week. I'll say that. And I've watched the Patriots a little bit this year. I'll really dig into them starting tomorrow and Tuesday. I know you'll do the same. But that said, I do think it matters that the Browns played a bad Dolphins team, and they beat them by 25 points, and they imposed their will on them, both in the run game and defensively. I do think that means something. I do think it matters that the Browns didn't win this game like 9-6 and squeak it out at the end. I mean, they did what they were supposed to do against a team. I agree with I agree with our commenter. The Dolphins stink, and the Browns did what you're supposed to do against a team that stinks.
Well, I tell you what, I think about it just a little bit differently. I didn't care if it was 9-6, and especially in the NFL. You and I have worked long enough together to know like each week is different, and no matter how good one week is, it doesn't usually carry over how bad one week. So obviously they're struggling as a whole, especially that offense. But it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter the efficiency, how they played. I don't care how bad the Dolphins were. I don't care about any of that. I care about the win. And I know that those coaches and players are thinking that too. And even though it doesn't carry over to the next week, Dan, you and I have talked about this. It really carries over into the work week. They're not as sore tomorrow. Food tastes a little bit better tomorrow. The film session's better tomorrow. You have more energy. You're positive. Those things all matter. When you guys are talking to Grant, he's saying, "I forgot what it felt like to win." That's a bad thing, right? So getting this win, I don't care who it's against. I don't care and that's the other thing. These guys have to enjoy this win. I appreciate Myles Garrett saying, we got to win more. That's good. But I also know Myles and those guys are working really, really hard. And I watch them every day at camp work really, really hard. And I want them to enjoy this win because that'll make going forward even better.
And the other thing too, and this is one of those sort of off the field things, but like now these guys don't have to spend the week answering questions about Kevin Stefanski, and they don't have to spend the week looking over their shoulder with the trade deadline coming like, man, who's going to be next? Are they going to move this guy for draft picks or that guy for draft picks? It just calms the waters down a lot around this football team. So this is the comment, and it keeps getting away from here. I want to try and put it up on the screen. So this is about Dillon Gabriel, and obviously, for those of you who listened to us all through the draft process, Lance was big on Dillon Gabriel. So okay, I'm gonna get this comment up here. It keeps scrolling down right when I'm gonna hit show it on the stream. So give me 2 seconds here, folks. This is real time here. Here we go. Got it. I'd love to hear from Lance whether the traits he loved about Dillon Gabriel in college we are seeing yet in the NFL. Any examples of high-level processing ability, realize the O-line is porous, and wide receiver drops. And you actually put up a post on Dillon right over, I think it was Friday or Saturday, you put up a post on Dillon Gabriel. Folks can find that on your Twitter feed. They can find it at cleveland.com/Browns. What are you seeing from Dillon Gabriel here? We're 3 starts in. Today I felt like today in a lot of ways was more of the same from him. What are you seeing progress-wise from Dillon Gabriel?
Well, first thing you're seeing is he has tremendous poise and tremendous character when he's out there. He doesn't look like the game is too fast for him. So that was the first thing, and that's all those college starts. Obviously, I don't say I'm biased. I'm calling like saying he has to have more impact. But in a day like today, I always say it doesn't matter. We'll figure out the impact next week. Today, he did what he had to do. I would say the big thing he's doing first and foremost is he's protecting the football. And they've been in a couple games where, the Vikings game per se, I don't care about how the offense works as long as you can give that defense a chance to win at the end of the game. I don't care how he plays at the end of the game for the next 10 weeks. If you're saying the other team has to go 80 yards to win, you take that every single time. Every single time, 10 out of 10. Now, in terms of his processing, I think he's seeing things better. I thought today he moved in the pocket a little bit better. I thought they did a little better job of moving him around today. He wasn't at a set launch point. I don't think Dillon Gabriel's ever going to be at his best when he is a standing target. And it had nothing to do with his height. I just don't think that plays to his entire strength. I think movement, you get a first down where you run a boot action and he gets 6 yards. And it's 2nd and 4. And you know how I feel about 2nd and 4 to 5. So I thought he made a lot of really good decisions. He still has, there's still there's room for growth, but you see him getting to his second progression. You see him getting to his third progression. Now, what's got to happen is that receivers got to make catches for him. He's also got to find the next level. He's got to find the next step where he has the first guy open, but maybe because of what the pre-snap coverage was, he's going to have the second or third guy open. So now he's got to start stretching the field. But I thought today he did what he had to do. I thought he was efficient. I thought you protect the ball very, very well. I was talking to Mary Kay before the game, and one of the things she was talking about is that I felt the Browns had, with the weather, usually the better team does not have the advantage. I thought in this game the weather was huge for the Browns because of what the Dolphins do. And Mary Kay brought up a point about 2 handles it best. And I thought that was really good because sometimes it doesn't matter what scheme fits best. It's who handles it best. So I thought he did a great job with that. He's everything you thought for me, he would be. And what you're also seeing is some of the limitations that you and, Tim, when we were going through, you're seeing some of those as well with the inability to stretch the field maybe, or the inability to have impact plays all the time. And he's a guy, I truly believe this. I still think he's a guy that can be the Browns quarterback, but you're going to have to surround him with elite talent. So it's really hard to evaluate him right now because of the offensive line being so porous, because of the receivers being so porous, because of him missing his stuff. He has his hand in the mess too. Then you have drops and you have bad timing, and then the defense gives up a drive, and then poor punting, and it all ties into quarterback play. But what I'm seeing is poise and the ability that this game is not too big for him or too fast for him. He's got to make sure he hits all his layups. He's got to make sure he gets them in the right run game. But I thought he is exactly who I thought he is. And I think he's a guy you can win with. I don't know if he'll ever be a guy you can win because of, but I'm not counting that out yet either.
Okay, I got to get to a couple important comments here. Jared with the really important stuff. The Browns 2-0 in the color rush uniforms. I don't like the color rush uniforms personally. I'm not a fan, but they're 2-0. And then our guy Mac here, Lance, I guess he's probably talking about me. Probably not talking about you. I don't mean that as any sort of insult, but dude's hair is off the hook. I don't know if that's a compliment. I don't know if that's an insult. Listen, it's been a long day. I've been in this stadium since 10 o'clock this morning. Like, things get a little crazy up here. I probably need to get a haircut here at some point, but
I'm going to go.
Oh yeah. So I don't think he's talking about you, Lance.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know if it's about me. I think I'm extra shiny today. Maybe he was talking about my beard, but no, that had to be, if you had to narrow that one down, I'm going to go with you, my friend. I'm going to go with you.
So let me ask you this, because I do think this is relevant when you talk about protecting the football. Dylan has had plays where, it's the shoulda, woulda, coulda. Some balls that probably should have been picked. I think PFF had him with 4 last week against Pittsburgh. There were definitely 2, maybe 3 today against the Dolphins. How do you view those? Because those, I think the fear is at some point, and maybe it's next week, maybe it's 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, whatever it is, at some point those missed interceptions do turn into real interceptions.
Well, two things I want to know is, first of all, when I watch the All-22 tomorrow, is it all him? Because a couple of them last week were all him, right? Where he's just making poor throws. If those poor throws, that's more that's less alarming to me, because he's going to have some bad throws. Is he throwing to a guy sitting in a window and he thinks that guy should stay on the run? So he's misreading it. So that would be more alarming to me, because then he's not processing, which, for Dylan to be successful, he has to make sure he's going to the right spot. Now, you and I have watched him in camp have days where he's had poor accuracy, and those are things he's going to have to improve if he's going to be an impactful quarterback and a guy you win more because of. But yeah, those are really, really warranted and fair arguments on Dylan. Is, my thing I would say for him is, I think he's making steps, and the bottom line is they won. This is a product-based organization and league, and they won today. And then you hope he makes the corrections. But for me, I want to watch him on the All-22, because last week, even though I'm a Dylan fan, I think he can be really good. He had some, and his throws are just, when he has a bad throw, it's just bad, and it's real bad. But that's less concerning to me, that if he's not reading it correctly, first man or zone, or where a guy should be, things like that. So hopefully it's the first one, and he just continues to work that accuracy.
All right, let's talk about this defense real quick before we wrap up here, because obviously they were fantastic today. They forced 4 turnovers. They just shut down the Dolphins. We were talking in the first half with Mary Kay and Ashley a little bit how, this Browns offense, when they've gone against elite defenses, has looked sort of like what the Dolphins looked like today against the Browns. I thought today from the start, this defense decided to impose their will, and they did that against a Dolphins team that is reeling, a team that didn't want to be here, a team that a couple guys indicated in the locker room that they felt like the Dolphins kind of quit in that game, or were starting to quit a little bit. They wore them down. They beat them down. And quite frankly, that's what this defense should be doing. That should be their goal every single week, is especially against a team like this whose coach is on the hot seat. It's raining. They don't want to be here. Go out there and impose your will. And I think that was a really impressive performance just all around from this defense today.
Well, and you've had, they kind of, what I like about them is that they've been told they're not as good last couple weeks, right? They've been told the Vikings, they gave a big drive, and there's 2 ways to look at it. You either prove people right or you prove people wrong. And I believe what they did was they went back and said, we're better than some of the things we did. We're better than that. We have to be more physical. And that instead of, if you look at like teams, when you talk about dysfunction and teams quitting on their coach and things like that, there was 2 examples of 2 1-5 teams that are not the same team or organization. Because as a football coach, when you watch that thing, the body language, how they handled themselves, it was two different teams. The Browns really wanted to play today, and that's a really good thing. And so for me, the defense, Mason Graham was outstanding today. Malik Collins was outstanding. Everybody's been kind of down on Mason Graham, and I try to tell people he's just a pain in the butt. He's not a stat stuffer, and you saw that today. And he's also going to get singled more because Malik Collins is playing so well. Then Miles and Alex Wright is turning into an elite defensive end. He's going past the developmental past it, making some good plays to becoming a pretty consistent dominant end outside. He's got to set the edge a little bit more, but I thought they set the edge against A-Chain. I thought they got two off his spot, and I thought the secondary kept those Waddle off those slants, digs, and in those in routes. I thought they took away those three things, and you're right. They just imposed their will. Good team defense. Another thing they did today, Dan, that I really liked was they brought pressure. They brought some five-man pressures that they've been kind of living with four guys because those four guys have been so good. But teams are pretty good too, and they blocked them a little bit, and they brought five today. And I think that tells you a coach in Schwartz is going, you know what? I know these guys are good, but let's change it up a little bit. Let's try to create some more mayhem in the background. They did that by bringing Delpit, by bringing these guys off the edge. I really like to see that too. Don't continue to stay with what's not working. Fix it, and they did, and they deserve credit for that.
And look, I've been hard on Grant Delpit over the last few years. I just feel like his impact hasn't been what they need it to be, especially considering what they're paying him. They gave him that extension a few years ago. He was one of the highest paid DBs in that room. I thought he was fine. I thought he was a piece, but I have always felt like he needed to have more impact. And I feel like this season, you go back to the Green Bay game, he has that interception. And today we saw that impact from Grant Delpit. And we're seeing it more every single week. This is the Grant Delpit that you drafted in the second round out of LSU, the guy that we're seeing this season.
Well, and he's actually played pretty well at the one high hat too, which I'm shocked. But you can see where he's really good. And you and I have talked about this for years. When he's down within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, he still makes an impact in the pass game, but you can blitz him. He's a run-fit guy. He takes on pulling guys. He's great coming off the corner. He can cover multiple positions. He covered slot today. He covered tight ends. He can cover backs out of the backfield. But you're right. The idea of kind of letting him play like a Tyrann Mathieu, right, where he's just out there making impactful plays. He's always played pretty solid, but today you saw impactful plays, and I think that's where Grant Delpit that's kind of the next step for him. And I think it happens down by a line of scrimmage. And when he does that, I've always been high in Grant Delpit, but down there by the line of scrimmage is where he thrives.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about here before we go? Special teams is good today.
Yeah, I thought
turnover.
I thought the special teams were really good. They covered very well. Their lanes very good. All this stuff again. Everybody's hired on Bubba. Everybody's hard on these guys. Once again, it's not anything for the rest of the season, but today those guys got after it and they were they outcoached them and they outplayed them. And I think they should enjoy this victory for get up tomorrow morning and then flush it just like you do the losses, but enjoy this one because it's hard to win in the NFL. I don't care who you're playing. Ask the Green Bay Packers when they played us. These guys all have elite talent, and the things that the Browns have struggled with, they addressed. They brought more pressure. They diversified the run game. They gave the ball, you and I and Mary Kay and Ashley, all four of us have said for 3 years, let's give the tailback the ball 25 times. They did today, and he got 25 carries. And whether he had big yards or not, it's just that body punches. So I give the coaches a lot of credit. I'm very critical of what they do, but I also want to be give them praise when they do things right, because as coaches, we often don't celebrate the wins as we should, but we let the losses beat us up. So congratulations to those guys, and hopefully it kind of gets them rolling into practice Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah, just once again, everybody gets to take a deep breath. That film session tomorrow, those meetings tomorrow aren't going to be as difficult. That Tuesday off day is going to be a little enjoyable, and then when you get back Wednesday and you start that week, you guys, you really kind of get to feel good about things going into what's going to be a very difficult game on the road against a really elite level coach and a team that's rolling. So it's going to be an interesting week ahead, and it would have been not to put too much on this game, but we should probably, because I think this game meant more than maybe the 1-5 versus 1-5 indicated. I really believed, look, if the Browns would have lost this game, it's like code red disaster.
It's
guys getting fired. Maybe not this week, but now we're really talking about it. And this just gives everybody a chance to breathe and just take a step back and just, it's like you're angry and you go for a walk Today's game was going for a walk.
Yeah, you're right. You get your run in and you're feeling better about yourself. And that's exactly, and you're right. And it sounds kind of weird, but think about whatever your job is. When you have a really good day, you go back the next day, the food tastes better. You're not as sore. Everything is just easier. The mistakes you made are like, they're easier to fix. Why? Because you won. And when you lose and you make a mistake, you're like, did that mistake cost us? And things like that. So absolutely it has nothing to do with, the Patriots next week, but it does have to do with the preparation for the Patriots next week. So I think you're going to get a good version of the Browns win or lose next week because of this win, because they're going to prepare at a high level.
Okay, we're going to wrap up the podcast there, our postgame podcast. Again, running through everything. If you're listening to this postgame podcast, you want to join us on our live pods. We do it every Sunday night. Between 8:15, kind of depends what we're doing work-wise with Mary Kay, Ashley, and I, kind of where we're at. But we try and start between 8 and 8:15. Our YouTube channel is Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. And we put a lot of our podcasts up in video form there too as well. There's a tab for Orange and Brown Talk, so check that out. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, you're one of these folks who just jump in the live stream to talk about Shedeur Sanders or whatever whenever we go live here. Hey, get subscribed to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Just search for Orange and Brown Talk. Also, Football Insider, that's cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. You get a newsletter. You get to be one of our texters. You get access to those stories at cleveland.com/Browns that are behind the paywall. I think that's everything. So that'll do it for this edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. That was Lance Reisland. You heard from Mary Kay and Ashley earlier. I'm Dan. Thanks for listening and for watching, everybody.